Hi guys, welcome to my coffee show. My name is Jack and today we are playing with this EO1 grinder. What it is, how does it work, what do I think about it, and by the end of this video you should be able to make your own decision. Is this a grinder right for you? First of all, big thank you to Timemore Millab for sending us this grinder. I will put the links in the description. There are some special links for you guys there. If you use them you may get the products a bit cheaper and I may earn some small commission. In the next weeks and months I will be reviewing many more products from Timemore, but I decided to start with this one because it is such an interesting idea. Overall, I have to say I like this grinder, but before you run away to buy one using my discount code, wait a minute, watch till the end of this video. There are a few things I'm not a fan of. If you don't know Millab and Timemore, they are basically the same companies, like a subdivision of Timemore, where all the innovation, all the exciting stuff happens. And this is one of the products. It's come in the box like so. I have to say the box itself looks impressive. What you will find inside that box, apart from the grinder, brush, blower, manual, you will find that great looking RDT bottle and you get a pouch. The pouch by itself, I don't think it's that useful. I would prefer to get a carrying case. And then obviously we have a grinder itself. Looks great. I have to say that most of the Timemore products, they look really good. The company tries to make them aesthetically pleasing. This grinder, it comes in two colors, black as you can see here, or you can also get a silver version. Made pretty much out of metal. The grinder itself weighs 960 grams. With a stand is almost 1.3 kg. You can use this grinder without that stand. If you travel, maybe you want to save yourself some weight, but with that stand it looks more like a real grinder rather than a hand grinder without a crank. The main body of the grinder, it has that nice texture that looks good and it helps with the grip. You get a catching cap that it is magnetically attached. The footprint of this grinder is very small, so it would fit into every coffee setup. You can charge it, you can take it with you, and should last you for very long. Timemore promises that if you grind for pour over 15 grams of coffee, it can grind up to 130 times. If you grind for espresso 20 grams of coffee, you should be able to grind for 30 shots on a single charge. It has two 2500 milliampere batteries inside, and they position those batteries in a very clever way so they do not restrict the space of the grinder. Because if you think about it, on top of the burrs and everything else, there has to be an engine there as well. And yes, they have like a top positioned engine there. It delivers a power of 25 watts and it rotates the shaft 60 times per minute. You may think 25 watts of power, it might be stalling. It hasn't happened to me yet, or at least I haven't noticed that. I try to use very light roast coffee with it, but if it does stall, it has the mechanism inside that reverses the direction into which it spins. It can do it up to 3 times. After 3 times it will turn itself off to protect the engine, to protect the burrs. Another clever solution here is that when you finish grinding, it turns itself off automatically. That's the nice thing to prolong the longevity of batteries. Talking about burrs inside, they have those spike to cut 890 patent grinding burrs. 42 millimeters. You know spike to cut burrs from other Timemore products, from other hand grinders. We will test it today. I will come back to the flavor notes. This grinder can grind for everything, from espresso all the way till French press. To change the settings, you pick up the grinder, you remove the catching cap. Underneath you find that old-fashioned click system. The description on the website is slightly confusing. They talk about 20 clicks, but then when you read through, you actually get 60 settings. So that's a stepped grinder with 60 clicks. You work within 1 revolution. The grinder tells you exactly where you should go for each brew method, but to be honest, you will have to find out yourself. My advice here, when you brew for the first time, go for that lower end recommended settings rather than a higher end. For espresso, it says from 0 to number 4. I'm usually working within that number 1, maybe slightly above 1, often below 1, depending on the coffee. By the way, you cannot turn it over 0. That's a good thing. You won't jam your burrs. Here is kind of my first complaint. I don't like this old-fashioned click system. Those numbers are so tiny. I have to wear my glasses when I change grind settings here. I've been using it for the last week as my one and only main grinder. They say that the total capacity of this grinder would be around 50 grams. I was not using that much to grind that coffee, that 20 grams of coffee for espresso. It takes some time. On average, I would say 1 minute and 50 seconds. seconds. For pour over, the grinding process is much faster. 15 grams of coffee on a pour over settings, on a low pour over settings, about 30 seconds. So that's a very respectable time. The noise itself, not that loud. If we talk about decibels, it is quiet, but the pitch, it might be slightly annoying. By the end of the grinding, just shake it gently. The rest of the coffee will get into the burrs. When I finish grinding, I like to tap gently the whole grinder on top of my countertop. That allows all the grinds to go into the catching cup. And if you do that, the retention will be near zero. That RDT is optional. Here in London, kind of humid environment, I was not getting much static. Now we're getting into the most important part of this video, how the coffee tastes. We want great coffee and we want it now. Let's start with the pour over. I have that great dual scale from Timemore for pour over, as you can see, with like a nice stand, but I haven't tried it yet. I haven't opened it yet. We'll do it in the future, I promise. So today I will use what I normally use for my pour overs. We're going to use 15 grams of coffee, and that will be Onyx Southern Weather. Big thank you to Onyx, by the way, for sending us a few bags of delicious coffee here. One thing that we still have to remember here for espresso, and especially for pour over, some of you probably do not believe in a burst seasoning, but I do. Those bursts, this grinder will only get better with time. Cheers. On the website, Millab promises sweetness and the clarity. And I think you get both of them. I mean, as long as you remember that this is a small grinder with small bursts, you should be satisfied with what you get. So I'm getting very neat finish. There is a sweetness, there is a sourness. In my rehearsals, I got a bit more sweetness. Today, a bit less. Today, it's more towards the fruitiness. I like the Southern Weather coffee for pour overs because it always gives a pleasant cup of pour over. And this grinder helps to develop the coffee nicely. If you ask, is this one better than what I normally use, DF83V with SSP multi-purpose bursts? The answer is no. With the bigger grinder, you get more of a depth in the flavor notes, so you can taste more. If you get this cup of coffee in isolation, you would be very happy. It's only when you compare it with something big and expensive, then you notice the differences. But now I fancy espresso. I could use some easy darker roast coffee, but no. I will use proper light medium roast coffee, so that's again coffee from Onyx Coffee Roasters. This is the coffee from Ethiopia, Hambela Alaka. And we have a shot here. As you could see, the extraction was not perfect, but I'm showing you here exactly as it is, exactly what you can expect from this grinder. It took 26 seconds. Cheers. If you had other grinders from Timemore, if you tried them for espresso, you will be already familiar with those flavor notes in espresso you can find here. So this grinder, obviously depending on the coffee, depending on the profile, but it can magnify sourness. I like it. So this is pleasant sourness, pleasant juicy sourness. We're not talking here about astringency. The body will be thin. There is a clarity. I wouldn't say top-notch clarity. That sourness is the dominant flavor here. So you have to look for those other flavor notes kind of behind it. But overall, the composition, what you get in a shot, is very nice. If I didn't know, I would never say that this came from a small electric grinder. Now, is it better than what I normally use, my Cafetech Flatmax 2? No, definitely not. There is a huge difference here. You get extra layers of flavors, you get extra depth, you get more from a big electric grinder, but that's what you would expect if you pay so much more. For the light roast coffee, you will be definitely happy. For medium roast coffee, you should be happy. For dark roast coffee, if you like myself, you might be missing that body, that extra oomph. So guys, if you are still here, if you still listen to me rambling here, that means you're a fan of the channel. You may as well click like, you may consider subscribing. Plenty more things coming. At some point we're going to open and review this one. That's the S3 hand grinder. Talking about big stuff here, Sculpture 078S. That's the flagship electric grinder from Timemore. Now, what do I think about this EO1 grinder? It's very good. It works. I haven't had any major issues with it, apart from those grind settings, those tiny numbers that I couldn't see. I like it for pour over, definitely, and I appreciate it for espresso. Can you find electric grinders that grind for better tasting coffee? Yes, but you would have to spend much more. If you are looking for your first electric grinder and you don't want to spend too much, this is the grinder for you. The price probably slightly over £200. That's a lot for hand grinder, but for electric grinder, that's relatively cheap. Another thing is that maybe you're a student, maybe you live in a share accommodation, you don't have much space, you want something with a small footprint, you want something that you can position anywhere you want, you don't need a power socket next to it. Maybe that would be the grinder you take with you to work. You can put it at your desk when you travel, but for whatever reason you don't want to use hand grinder. Maybe you cannot use hand grinder. I know elbow tendonitis can be very painful condition. Some people have issues with the wrists. Some people are simply lazy. They don't want to hand grind, but they want something relatively small. This is the grinder for you. Comments, guys, if you already tried this grinder, what do you think about it? Do you like it? Would you recommend it? Maybe it is the first time you hear about this grinder. Is it something that you would consider? Would it be the grinder that you use when you travel? Would you use it at work or maybe somewhere else? Let us know in the comments. Are there any other smaller electric grinders you would recommend as well? Plenty more things coming, but for today, thank you very much for watching. My name is Jack, this is my coffee show, and hopefully I will see you soon. Thank you, bye!